Kathmandu was drowning. The rain turned the city into a grey blur of mud and secrets. Inside Department 42, the air was stagnant, smelling of wet wool and old cigarette ash. Detective Rana stood before the director's desk, his breathing heavy, his hands trembling with a cold, jagged anger. He stared at the empty chair across the room, the chair where Inspector Thapa had sat only yesterday, before they found him cold in a basement. Director Sharma didn't look up. His pen moved across the paper with clinical precision. The report is finished, Rana. It was a lapse in judgment, a private tragedy. We have already moved the files to the closed archives. Rana leaned over the desk, his voice a dangerous, vibrating growl. A lapse? Thapa was my brother. He was the best hunter you had, and you're burying him in a cardboard box before the marks on his neck have even faded? Sharma's eyes finally rose, two pieces of ice set in a stone face. He was an officer. Officers are replaceable, but the data he lost is not. Delhi is already breathing down our necks. They've sent a man, Agent Venkat. You will pick him up at noon, and you will behave. The airport was a chaotic furnace of heat and diesel smoke. Rana didn't wait at the gate. He stood by his battered Scorpio, spitting a cigarette onto the tarmac as the passengers poured out. He saw the man, small, neat, and looking at the mountains like they were a technical problem to be solved. Rana didn't move. Hey, you! Get in the car. I'm not here to carry your bags. Venkat didn't blink. He walked through the sweltering crowd with a terrifying rhythmic stillness. He stood in front of Rana, his expression as flat as a digital screen. Agent Venkat, not you. And I suggest you save your temper for the men who killed your partner. I am here because Thapa was the only man you had who knew how the world really works. And now, I'm the only one left. Rana slammed the car into gear, the Scorpio lurching through the mud. He glared at the rearview mirror. Why are you here, Agent? Why does India care about one dead cop in a Kathmandu alleyway? The Scorpio growled past the ancient towering gates of the Pashupatinath temple complex. The scent of burning sandalwood drifted through the open window, cutting through the heavy smell of diesel. Despite the rain, the crowds were lively and organized. Thousands of devotees moving in a disciplined, rhythmic tide against the stone walls. A vibrant sea of saffron robes navigating the mud with a strange, quiet grace. Venkat watched the disciplined motion through the glass, his voice sharpening. Look at them, Rana. So peaceful. Half of these people owe that peace to Thapa, and they don't even know his name. He wasn't just a liaison. He was the one who saw how the drug money was being used to buy space inside Nepal, buying influence, buying silence. It's almost impressive, isn't it? That one man could do more to protect this country's infrastructure than your entire police force has managed in 30 years. Rana gripped the wheel, his eyes softening for a fraction of a second as they fought through the human tide. Thapa didn't kill himself. He was a believer. He wouldn't leave his soul in a basement. Venkat leaned in, his voice a cold blade against the engine's roar. I know he didn't. And I know why they did it. They didn't just want him dead. They wanted him silenced. Now, take me to the morgue. Let's see what the city couldn't wash away. The morgue smelled of ozone, formaldehyde, and the finality of cold meat. It was a basement room that the sun had forgotten decades ago. Rana walked ahead, his footsteps heavy, his shadow dancing against the flickering light. In the center of the room, a young doctor in a stained lab coat stood over a steel table. He didn't look up when they entered. The doctor adjusted his glasses, his voice echoing off the tiled walls. "The case is straightforward, Detective. Standard asphyxiation by suspension. The ligature mark is high on the neck, inverted V shape, consistent with the weight of the body dropping. Thapa simply let go." Venkat stepped into the light. He didn't look at the doctor. He looked at Thapa. "Permission to examine?" "Thank you." He leaned over the body, his eyes moving like a scanner. "Doctor, look at the lividity in the lower extremities. It's patchy, not fixed. If he had hung there for 6 hours, as your report suggests, the blood would be pooled solidly in the feet." Rana moved closer, his jaw tight. "What are you saying, Venkat?" Venkat's fingers moved to Thapa's jawline with terrifying gentleness. "Look closer. Horizontal. A complete circle around the throat. And here, petechial hemorrhaging in the eyes, too dense for a simple drop." He tilted the head back. "The hyoid bone is fractured inward. That happens when someone uses a garrote wire from behind." The air outside was thick with the scent of wet asphalt and charcoal smoke. Rana leaned against the brick wall, his breath coming in shallow, ragged bursts. He pulled out a crumpled pack of cigarettes, his hands finally steady. He offered one to Venkat, a silent peace offering. Rana watched the smoke vanish into the rain. "My doctor missed it. My director ignored it. But you saw the wire before you even touched the skin. I thought you were just a desk jockey from Delhi." Venkat took a drag, the orange cherry of the cigarette illuminating his glasses. "I'm a man of data, Rana. And the data told me Thapa wouldn't quit. He wasn't just a liaison. He was my friend. My eyes." Rana's voice dropped, turning into a dangerous, vibrating growl. "I don't want a report, Venkat. I don't want a file for the archives. I want the head of the man who put that wire around his neck. I want to see the light go out of his eyes." Venkat stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper against the rain. "Thapa trusted you, Rana. So I'm going to do the same. My team in Delhi has been tracking a ghost for months. A man named Liang." Rana's eyes widened, the cigarette nearly falling from his lips. "Liang? The logistics consultant? The man dines with the director once a week. He's practically a shadow member of the cabinet. He's untouchable." Venkat nodded, his jaw set. "He's the one pulling the strings, and he's the reason Thapa is on that table. I'm going to put a surveillance net on him. I'm taking the risk, but I can't do it alone." Rana turned to him, the smoke curling around his face like a shroud. "I don't give a damn about the risks, Agent. I've broken enough rules to know they don't protect men like Thapa. But I don't like being a pawn. If I step into the dark, I do it for him. Not for you, and certainly not for Delhi. I'm not here to win your war. I'm here to dismantle the ones who killed my brother." Venkat flicked the cigarette butt into the mud. I'm not looking for a pawn, Rana. I'm looking for the man Thapa trusted. We find the bridge. We find Liang. And then you can have his head. Do we have a deal? The ring road was a river of mud and flickering headlights. Kathmandu's outskirts felt like the edge of the world. Half-finished brick buildings and tangled power lines disappearing into the grey mist. Inside the car, the air was thick with the smell of wet leather and the static of a growing conspiracy. Rana kept his eyes on the road, his hands tight on the wheel. You talked about a pipeline, Venkat. We see the junkies in Tamil, sure. But you're talking about something bigger. How does a logistics consultant from China move enough weight to buy a city? Venkat didn't look at him. He watched the wipers. It starts at the northern border, Rana. High-purity precursors hidden in textile shipments crossing at Tatupani. The border guards look at the envelopes stuffed with 1,000-rupee notes and wave the trucks through. It's a perfected system. Rana shifted gears, the engine growling. I know the route. They move it through the mid-hills down to the godowns in Beargunj. The businessmen there, they have import-export licenses that are basically licenses to print money. But what about the politicians? They aren't that cheap. Rana adjusted his grip on the wheel, his voice darkening. And it's not just the top level. In the regional districts, unemployment is a plague. You have thousands of young men sitting in the dust with no future and empty pockets. They're easy to manipulate. Give them a handful of quick cash to look the other way or move a package, and they're yours. Liang doesn't just buy officials. He buys the desperation of the provinces. He turns an entire generation into disposable soldiers. Venkat leaned forward. The money doesn't go to their pockets directly. It funds their red cadres and ideological study circles. It pays for the media houses, the editors who kill a story before the ink is dry. It's a closed loop. The drug trade is just the gasoline. The fire is the information Liang is extracting to fuel the red expansion. Rana braked hard for a pothole, the car splashing through deep water. Information? We're a landlocked nation of mountains and temples. What do we have that Beijing would pay for in heroin? Venkat turned to him, his eyes reflecting the dashboard lights. You have the black files, Rana. The joint counter-terrorism ops we've run for 10 years. The locations of our safe houses. The names of every deep cover asset India has placed along the Himalayan belt. Liang isn't a criminal. He's a state asset. A professional extractor for the party. Rana's voice trailed off. The server upgrades. Liang's company did the physical architecture for Department 42 last summer. He was in the walls. Venkat nodded slowly. He's found a way to bleed your systems dry. He's moving intelligence out under our noses, bypassing every digital eye we have. Papa caught him. Not in the system, but in the hallway. He was about to identify the mole, the man inside your own office who was handing the intelligence over at the Golden Lotus. Rana gripped the wheel until the plastic creaked. One of my own. Handing over our lives for a cut of the red money. Thapa died because he saw a face he recognized. Director Sharma's office was a fortress of mahogany and silence. Sunlight fought through the heavy velvet curtains, illuminating the dust motes dancing over a desk of carved teak. There was no mud here, no smell of diesel, just the scent of expensive cologne and old money. Sharma sat perfectly still, his hands folded like a prayer over the file Rana had just thrown down. Sharma didn't look at the file. He looked through Rana. Reckless paranoia, detective. That is the only phrase that fits this performance. Rana leaned over the desk, his voice vibrating with a desperate, jagged energy. Thapa was garroted, Director. Venkat found the marks. The drug pipeline, the red payroll, the data leaks. It all leads back to Liang. He's not a consultant. He's a parasite inside our servers. Sharma's expression didn't change. He turned his gaze to Venkat, his voice dropping an octave. And you, Agent. I expected better from Delhi. Mr. Liang is a government consultant with highest level clearance. He is a personal friend to the ministry. He is above suspicion. Venkat stood perfectly still, his hands behind his back. The data suggests otherwise, Director. We have identified a pattern of intelligence extraction that aligns perfectly with Liang's access windows. If we don't put him under surveillance... Sharma slammed his hand on the desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet room. You will put nothing under surveillance. You have no jurisdiction here, Agent. You are a guest who has overstayed his welcome. Sharma stood up slowly, walking to the window to look out over the city he controlled. He didn't turn back around. Kathmandu is a beautiful city for a tourist, Venkat. I suggest you spend the next 48 hours sightseeing. Visit the temples. Buy some pashmina. Enjoy the peace before your inevitable return to Delhi. Rana took a step forward. Director, you can't just... Sharma's voice cut him off like a blade. Go back to your desk, Rana. Write the suicide report for Thapa. Mention the depression. Mention the stress. If I hear Liang's name in this office again, you'll be joining your friend in a cardboard box. Rana and Venkat stood in the hallway, the sterile light reflecting off the polished floor. The wall was up. The trap was set. And they were on the wrong side of both. The bar was a hole in the wall tucked away in the back streets of Patan. A place where the walls were stained with 50 years of tobacco smoke, and the lights were low enough to hide a bruised face. On the table sat a plate of spicy sukuti and 2 glasses of dark local rum. Rana leaned back in the vinyl booth, his bat sitting on the table between them like a discarded toy. Rana took a slow sip of the rum, his eyes fixed on Venkat's wrist. That's a hell of a piece, Agent. HMT? Mechanical? Venkat adjusted his cuff, the silver casing of the watch catching a stray sliver of neon light. An old janta, hand-wound. It was my father's. He didn't trust anything with a battery. Rana nodded, picking up a piece of the dried meat. Your father was a smart man. Batteries die, circuits fry. But those little gears, they just keep grinding. You can feel the heartbeat of the thing when you wind it. Digital is for people who want to know the exact millisecond they are being lied to.
Analog is for people who understand the weight of time.
Venkat looked at the watch, a rare ghost of a smile touching his lips. Digital is efficient, Rana. It's clean. But it's binary. 0 or 1. Alive or dead. There's no room for the grey zone in a silicon chip. A mechanical watch? It's all friction. It's a struggle against physics just to keep the hands moving. I like the struggle. Rana leaned forward, the jazz music fading into the background.
Speaking of struggle, Sharma just gave you 48 hours to pack your bags. He told me to bury Thapa in a file cabinet and forget the name Liang ever existed. The digital system just told us to shut down, Venkat. Binary. Game over.
Venkat didn't blink. He took a slow drag from his cigarette. Delhi expects a report by Friday. My flight is booked. My official existence in the city ends at midnight. He paused, looking directly at Rana. But I find myself suddenly very interested in the local architecture. I think I'll stay. Unofficially. Rana let out a dry, rasping laugh.
You're going rogue. An Indian agent playing unknown gunman in my backyard. My career is already a smoking wreck, Venkat. If we do this and we get caught, there is no Delhi. There is no Department 42. Just a shallow hole in the mud.
Venkat slid his glass across the table until it touched Rana's. Thapa didn't care about the shallow hole. He cared about the red payroll buying his country one official at a time. I'm not here for Delhi anymore, Rana. I'm here for the gears, for the friction. I want to find the man who wound the wire around his neck. Rana picked up his badge, looked at it for a second, then slid it into his pocket.
Then we stop being cops. We become ghosts. I have a safe house near the brick kilns. No cameras, no records. Just us and the target.
They left the rum unfinished. Two men walking out into the rain, leaving their titles and their rules behind in the smoke. The Scorpio was a metal oven baked by the midday sun. They were parked 50 meters down from the Golden Lotus, a faded green storefront that looked like 1,000 other restaurants in the city. Venkat sat in the passenger seat, hunched over a small, shielded monitor. He was threading a thin, translucent wire through the seam of Rana's jacket collar. Rana adjusted his collar, looking at the tiny glass lens.
No signal? No Bluetooth? How am I supposed to see what I'm looking at if you aren't recording it on a cloud?
Venkat's fingers moved with surgical precision. Liang has a signal sweeper inside that restaurant that would fry a standard digital transmitter in seconds. This is analog optical fiber, Rana. It's just light traveling through glass. No RF signature. No trace. It's 1970s tech, which makes it invisible to 2026 sensors. Rana leaned toward the windshield, his eyes narrowing.
Wait. Look at the service entrance. That's the blue van from the department.
Venkat looked up. Through the heat haze, a man in a grey jumpsuit stepped out. He began unloading plastic bins of cleaning supplies.
Who is he, Rana?
Rana's breath hitched.
It's Hari, the night shift cleaner at Department 42. He's been polishing the floors in the server room for 6 years. I bought him tea last Christmas. What the hell is a janitor doing at Liang's private table? Venkat watched the man disappear into the restaurant. He's the hand, Rana. Now, go in, sit close. Don't look at the camera, just look at the menu. The Golden Lotus was cool and smelled of star anise and old grease. It was nearly empty. Liang sat in a corner booth, his back to the wall, his expression unreadable as he stared at a bowl of untouched noodles. Rana took a seat 2 tables away, opening his menu. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his hands remained steady. Venkat's voice crackled in Rana's earpiece, thin and distant. I see him. High resolution. Look at the waiter, Rana. Something's wrong. A waiter approached Liang's table and pulled a bright red laminated menu card from a reserved drawer. As Liang touched the card, Hari, the janitor, approached. He didn't just pass by this time. He stopped. Rana stared through the corner of his eye, his voice a vibrating thread of anger. He's standing there, Venkat. Hari. He's grinning. A wide, ugly smile. Like he's sharing a joke with the man who killed his own people. Venkat's voice hissed in the ear. Describe the movement, Rana. Liang is leaning in. He's giving him instructions, pointing at his watch, asking questions. Hari just keeps nodding, that damn grin never leaving his face. There, Liang just slid a thick yellow envelope across the table. Hari tucked it into his jumpsuit faster than a card trick. That's the red payroll. That's the price of a man's soul. Hari set a small white takeout container on the edge of Liang's table. Liang immediately slid the red menu card back to the waiter and picked up the bag. Rana watched as Liang stood up to leave, the takeout bag swaying in his hand. He's leaving with the box. Hari is heading back to the kitchen like nothing happened. They're so comfortable, Venkat. They've done this 100 times. Venkat's voice was grim. Look at the bag as he walks, Rana. It doesn't sway like food. It's rigid, heavy. It's pulling on his shoulder. That box isn't full of dumplings. It's full of evidence. Get out of there. Now. The safe house was a concrete shell near the northern brick kilns. No windows, just a heavy steel door and the smell of damp earth. 2 screens flickered in the dark. On the left, the grainy black and white feed from the city's official CCTV. On the right, the razor-sharp, vibrant colors of the analog collar cam. Venkat sat hunched over the keyboard, his face washed in blue light. Venkat scrubbed the video back and forth, the frames zipping with each movement of the mouse. Look at the official feed, Rana. Frames are dropped every 3 seconds. The resolution is so low you can barely see the steam from the soup. To the police servers, this looks like a man having lunch. Rana stood behind him, a tin cup of black coffee in his hand. And the collar cam? What does the light through the glass tell us? Venkat paused the right-hand screen. Look at Liang's wrist as he picks up the takeout bag. Watch the tendons. If that were dumplings, his hand would be relaxed. But look at the tension in the forearm, the way he locks his elbow to compensate for the weight. He scrubbed forward 10 frames. Now look at the bag itself. It doesn't swing. It sags with a hard rectangular edge. That's not food, Rana. That's a lead-shielded casing holding an SSD. Rana leaned in, his eyes fixed on the image of Hari the janitor. The bridge. The Golden Lotus isn't a restaurant. It's a physical upload station. Hari walks the drives out of Department 42 in his trash bins, hands them to Liang over a red menu, and walks out with the red payroll in his jumpsuit.
Venkat nodded, his eyes reflecting the frozen image of the grinning janitor. Logic dictates that the restaurant provides the signal masking. No RF, no digital footprint. Just physical handoffs in a room full of witnesses who see nothing but a hungry man and a busy cleaner. The anomaly is the weight, Rana. Data has no mass until you put it on a drive. And that drive is currently moving toward the airport. Rana walked away from the screens, his shadow stretching long across the concrete floor. He picked up a hammer and heavy industrial stapler from a workbench, testing its spring with a sharp thwack. Venkat closed the laptop. We have the confirmation. We have the mole. We need to talk to Hari, Rana, before Liang hits the departures gate. Rana turned back, his face half hidden in the darkness. The light from the generator flickered, catching the cold hunger in his eyes.
We're going to do more than talk to him, Venkat. Talking is for the director's office. In this room, I'm going to open him up and see what else he's been polishing besides our flaws.
The partnership was no longer about data. It was about the gravity of the bag, the weight of the betrayal, and the blood that was about to be spilled in the dark. The basement of the abandoned brick kiln was a tomb of soot and shadow. The air was thick with the smell of wet charcoal and the metallic tang of fear. Hari was zip-tied to a rusted rebar chair in the center of the room, his grey janitor's jumpsuit stained with mud and sweat. He wasn't grinning anymore. In the shadows behind him, Venkat leaned against a concrete pillar, the orange cherry of his cigarette the only light in the corner. He didn't say a word. Rana stepped into the weak circle of light from a single hanging bulb. He didn't have a file. He didn't have a recorder. He just had the hammer, its heavy steel head slick with the humidity. Hari's voice was a jagged mess of breath. Rana, please. I told you, I just cleaned the floors. I don't know anything about Liang. Please, we were friends. Rana didn't look at his face. He looked at Hari's right knee.
We weren't friends, Hari. You were a guest in my house, and you let the wolves in through the back door.
Rana didn't wait for the scream to fade. He moved to the left leg.
That was for the tea I bought you. This one is for Thapa.
Rana stood back, wiping a speck of something from his cheek. He reached onto the workbench and picked up the industrial stapler. He pressed the cold muzzle against Hari's blood-soaked thigh. Rana leaned down, his fingers digging into the shattered bone of Hari's knee, squeezing until the man's eyes bulged.
The restaurant, Hari. The bag you gave Liang. Tell me what's in the box. And tell me why a janitor is eating lunch with a ghost.
Hari's head lolled back, spit and blood leaking from his lips. It's a drive. An SSD. Encrypted. The Golden Lotus. It isn't what you think. It's a safe house. A front for the Ministry of State Security. Rana pressed the stapler harder against the wound, the metal clicking.
Who runs it? Who's the waiter?
The staff. They aren't waiters. They're PLA agents. Undercover. They run the SIGINT for the whole district from that kitchen. Liang is their architect. Singapore. He takes the drive to Singapore tonight. Flight 402. Rana's voice was a whisper of ice.
And Thapa. Who put the wire around his neck, Hari? Tell me, or I start on your fingers.
Liang. Liang did it. Thapa caught me in the server room. He saw my face. Liang told me to lead him to the basement. He said he'd handle the silencing. I just watched. I just watched him die, Rana. I'm sorry. Venkat's voice emerged from the dark, as calm as a morning report. The handoff, Hari. Where is he meeting his contact in Singapore? Is it at the airport? The hub. The transit hotel. The handoff is at the hub. Before he clears customs. Please, no more. Rana stood up slowly, the hammer hanging at his side. He stepped back 2 paces, his eyes drifting to the dark corners of the ceiling. He looked like a man remembering a ghost.
Thapa was a gem, Hari. He was the light in a very dark office. He was my friend. He was my brother. He believed in this city. He believed in people like you.
Rana's voice hardened, the emotion turning into a frozen, jagged edge.
But traitors don't get brothers. They just get the weight of their choices.
Rana adjusted his stance, his feet settling into the soot like he was standing at the crease of a cricket pitch. He gripped the hammer handle with both hands, his knuckles white. He didn't look for a confession anymore. He swung. A perfect straight drive from the dirt, catching Hari square under the chin. The steel head tore through the jaw, cracking the bone into 1,000 shards and driving the splinters straight up into the base of the skull. The screaming stopped instantly. The only sound left was the dripping water and the heavy, ragged breathing of a man who had finally settled a debt. Rana didn't look down. He turned to the shadows.
He's done talking, Venkat. Let's go to the airport.
The kiln was silent again, except for the monsoon rain washing away the blood in the dark. The air in the kiln was thick with the scent of quicklime and wet earth. Rana worked in a rhythmic, mechanical trance, his face a mask of sweat and grey dust. He didn't look at the mound of dirt in the corner. He just moved the earth, burying the betrayal along with the man who carried it. Across the room, Venkat stood by the open steel door, the rain mist ghosting around his silhouette as he finished his call. Venkat stared at the half-filled grave, his voice devoid of judgment. Delhi has the manifest. Flight 402 to Singapore. Liang checked in remotely 20 minutes ago. He isn't checking any luggage, Rana. He's going to walk through that gate with the drive in his hand, tucked inside that takeout box, just like Hari confessed. Rana stopped shoveling, leaning on the handle. He wiped his forehead with a sleeve that was already ruined.
He's a smart man, Venkat. Why Singapore? He could be across the northern border in 6 hours by car. Why risk an airport with high-security scanners?
Venkat adjusted his glasses, his eyes reflecting the cold logic of the game. Because the northern border is a bottleneck, Rana. Every inch of it is watched by satellites and mountain patrols. But Singapore is the perfect place for disappearing. It's what we call the clean passport maneuver. Rana frowned, digging the shovel back into the dirt.
Explain. I'm just a local cop, remember?
Venkat stepped closer. Liang carries 3 identities. He'll land in Singapore and stay in the transit hub, the neutral ground before immigration. There he meets an embassy courier. A simple swap of bags and the SSD is gone into the Chinese cloud. While Liang walks out with a fresh passport and a clean history. Rana spat into the dirt.
A digital ghost story. He thinks once he hits that transit lounge, he's in international waters. But Sharma will never let us touch him at the gate. We'll be arrested before we even show our badges.
Venkat checked his watch, the analog hands ticking toward the deadline.
That's why I just called the hive. My superiors are moving the levers in Delhi as we speak. Indian External Ministry is talking to your cabinet. By the time we reach Tribhuvan, the pressure from our side will have the Nepali cabinet on edge. Sharma might want to protect Liang, but he won't commit career suicide to defy a direct order from his own ministers.
Rana let out a dry, rasping laugh.
So you're bringing in the heavy artillery. Political static to drown out the director's protests.
Venkat nodded.
If we're going to be ghosts, Rana, we might as well have a storm at our backs. We have 90 minutes. If he clears immigration, the diplomatic shields go up. We have to take him at the gate.
Rana threw the final shovelful of dirt. He didn't smooth it over. He dropped the shovel and walked toward the Scorpio, his footsteps heavy and purposeful. The rain was still falling, but the air felt different now. The hunt had moved from the basement to the sky.
90 minutes, Rana growled over the engine's whine. Let's see if your politicians can move faster than this rain.
Tribhuvan International was a pressure cooker of humidity and desperation. Rana and Venkat stood near Gate 4, eyes locked on Liang. He was holding a small white cardboard takeout box tied with red twine. He looked like a man who had already escaped. Rana tapped his earpiece.
Now, Bikram, isolate him.
Liang stepped forward to the counter. Suddenly, Bikram, in his green food quality vest, blocked his path.
Mr. Liang, sir, step aside, please. We have a red flag for biological contraband in your carry-on. Please follow me to the secondary inspection room. Now.
The inspection room was small. Liang turned to protest but froze. Rana and Venkat were already there, leaning against the cold wall. Face to face. No witnesses, no crowd. Rana didn't say a word. He stepped forward and snatched the box from Liang's hand. He yanked the red twine and ripped the lid back. Inside was a simple club sandwich wrapped in plastic. Rana shoved the sandwich aside with a brutal hand, reaching for the floor of the box. There, taped firmly to the bottom, was the SSD. A small black rectangle that held the lifeblood of a nation's secrets. Venkat stepped into the light, his voice a cold whisper. "It's over, Liang. The air gap just closed." Rana's head snapped toward the glass. A man in a dark blazer was standing in the terminal hallway, filming the room with a professional telephoto lens. Their eyes met through the glass. The man didn't run. He simply lowered the camera and began to walk away with a terrifying rhythmic calm.
"Venkat, secure the drive. I've got the watcher."
Rana followed the man through the sea of travelers. The stranger didn't rush. He moved through the chaos like a ghost through a graveyard. Rana finally cornered him near the entrance to the VIP lounge. He reached for his cuffs, his chest heaving with adrenaline.
"Stop right there. Hands where I can see them."
The man stopped. He turned slowly, his expression bored, almost pitying. He didn't reach for a weapon. He reached into his blazer and pulled out a black leather passport wallet with gold lettering.
"Chinese embassy staff. Diplomatic immunity."
The man didn't blink. The man didn't say another word. He turned his back on Rana and walked toward a black sedan waiting at the curb. Rana stood alone in the humidity, the heat of his own rage cooling into a terrifying realization. They had the drive, but the masters were still walking the streets, untouched. The airport departures curb. Rana and Venkat sat in the front seat of the Scorpio, the windows fogged with the humidity of two men who had been through a war. Venkat's laptop sat open on the dashboard, a green progress bar finally hitting 100%. He didn't look triumphant. He looked tired. Venkat tapped a key, opening a high-resolution blueprint file. "It's decrypted, Rana, but it's not a list of names. It's a map." Rana leaned over, squinting at the screen. The blueprint looked familiar. The layout of the hallways, the reinforced concrete. "That's the basement of Department 42, the server room." Venkat pointed to a specific junction in the wiring, hidden behind the main cooling vents. "Look at the hardware specs. The fiber optic cables aren't just carrying data to our terminals. There's a secondary, passive line embedded in the structural slab. It was never meant to be air-gapped." Rana felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. Liang. He was the lead consultant when we renovated the headquarters 5 years ago. He didn't just break into our system, Venkat. He built it. Venkat closed the laptop with a soft, final click. The legacy backdoor. The vulnerability was built into the physical architecture. Every report you typed, every secret Thapa guarded, it was being mirrored to a receiver in the Golden Lotus before it even hit your screen. You were living inside a trap he designed half a decade ago. Rana sat back, his head hitting the headrest. The logic was perfect. The betrayal wasn't a glitch, it was the foundation. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled pack of cigarettes. He offered one to Venkat. They stepped out of the car, standing in the diesel haze of the terminal curb. The rain had slowed to a mist. Travelers hurried past them, oblivious to the two ghosts standing by the idling SUV. Venkat took a long drag, looking up at the flight board through the glass. "You were right about the watches, Rana," Venkat said, his voice almost lost in the airport noise. "The digital world is a lie. It's the gears you have to watch, the things you can touch." Rana nodded, the smoke curling around his face. "And the people who wind them. Safe travels, Agent. Try not to get lost in the cloud." Venkat looked at Rana. There were no handshakes, no official commendations, just a sharp, single nod of mutual respect. The kind shared by men who had buried a body and a secret in the same night. Venkat adjusted his bag, turned and walked into the terminal. Rana watched him go until the Indian agent disappeared into the crowd. He stood there for a moment longer, finishing his cigarette, a lone figure in the grey heart of Kathmandu. But the grey zone, it never truly closes. Somewhere in the shadows, the gears are already being wound for the next move.